schools. Can you name 3 issues that you feel, if you were elected to the school board, must be addressed right away? 3 issues.
Most definitely. There's more, but of the top 3 that I'm really concerned with, again, is community, parent, stakeholder engagement in what's happening with the Buffalo Public Schools, what's happening with the schools in general. And I think that's a term that might be used a lot, is this trickle down that comes to communities about what's happening, decisions that are being made and just not even really presented, just told to us. And some folks who don't have the access to understand what's happening get put in the crossfires of decisions and didn't even know they were going to go down. Again, as a parent, you don't know what's going on in the schools, and if you don't know what's going on, it's your fault, and that's wrong. I also believe that the resources are not available for the schools, the Buffalo Public Schools, the way that they need to be. I am a pro-public candidate. The reason I say this is because we have spent a lot of time, effort, and money into beautifying the outside of our schools and have not looked into the inside of the schools and really done our due diligence to make sure that the teachers and the students and the stakeholders and the administrators have everything they need in order to succeed. A couple extra bushes in front of a building is not going to make the attendance issue a better thing to deal with. I also truly believe that when we start engaging in, I believe Sharon Cotman put it in a better way, a school climate, there's so many issues within the schools themselves. When we talk about attendance, when we talk about suspensions, when we talk about just the communication that's given from the administrators to the teachers, from what I'm hearing, talking to community, I'm kind of tired of the trickle-down effect that we don't know what's going on in the school, so we as community start pointing the fingers and playing the same blame game that the board is playing, then everybody's playing the blame game. And if you feel that your teacher and the student, the 2 components that are actually supposed to be working together to make a successful, not only environment, but to bring a whole child's effort and bring out their creativity, when you start pointing that out, you get labeled. So to me, a whole approach on so many levels with those 3 top things as being criteria as well.
Thank you, Ms. Makosi. Mr. Hood.
Okay, so I'm just going to outline these 3 big issues and then I'm going to elaborate on them. So the first issue is receivership, the second, technology, and the third, conflict on the board. In no particular order. I'm going to start with conflict on the board. Right now, the board is in chaos. It's factionalism. You have the majority and the minority, and it's gotten so bad that, in fact, the minority on the board has had to hire legal help in order to defend itself against the majority in terms of how the majority attacks them. That's how bad, and that's costed upwards of $1 million for the district, and meanwhile, some of our schools don't even have counselors and proper student-based support services to fund them. So the second issue is receivership. We should not be labeling our children as failures, especially when the standard is Common Core, which is a flawed system that was rolled out in the wrong way. I brought my sister's Common Core math book for 4th grade. I was going to show it to Carl and have him hopefully solve some problems. This is the answer to one problem. It's a full page of work, and that's the right answer here. So I was going to ask Carl to solve the problem, but he didn't kind of show up, so he doesn't care. Technology. We're getting our butts kicked by the suburbs in terms of technology. We have dinosaur computers compared to the MacBooks that you see in the suburbs and the iPads that people get. And we've made some progress with grants and things like that towards getting technology to our kids. But that's something I'm going to strive for and actively pursue, because I believe that in order for our kids to be competitive in this working world, in order for them to compete with these suburban kids who are getting iPads and are being taught all these skills, they need the technology and they need to learn the skills through workplace skills and teaching to be successful in life.
Thank you, Mr. Hood. From you to go, and we will start with Mr. Harris.
Do you think teachers and principals should be evaluated based on the test scores of their students Why or why not?
I just addressed this before, that I do not think that they should be evaluated based on these test scores. I think that we do need a tool in order to evaluate teachers, students, and principals. But right now, that tool, the tool that they're using, Common Core, it's not the right tool. I looked through my sister's math book for 4th grade, and I was like, oh my God, I can't understand any of this. Why are they teaching this to our kids? And I was going to show, again, Mr. Palladino, who's a big proponent of this receivership in Common Core, but he didn't show up. I'll pass it around to the audience if you guys want to see it. Like, it's some crazy stuff in there. I'm not even going to lie to you. So no, I think that we need a better system for seeing how we can evaluate these teachers, these kids, and it can't be through calling them failures, putting them on receivership lists, and then stressing everyone out about it. That's not how it works. We need to be extending support to these kids. We need to be extending support to these teachers who are teaching these kids, who are concerned kids, struggling kids. And that's how we need to solve this problem, not by telling them that they're failures and threatening their jobs. No, because that just stresses everyone out. And it might get you higher test scores on the short term because teachers get scared and they start pushing their kids really hard. But at the end of the day, it's going to increase your dropout rates, and it's going to do a lot of stuff. A friend of mine who went to South Park was telling me that her teachers were pushing her really hard and they wouldn't offer her help, and she felt like they didn't care. She ended up dropping out. That's not what I want to see. I want to see our teachers and our kids working at a pace that works for them, because every kid is different and you cannot slap a standard on it.
He's a product of public school, our public school system.
So, I do not believe by any measure that testing should be what we use to evaluate our teachers and our administration. I mean, just put that in perspective of your own job. If somebody was to just throw down something that determines your job, how you've done your work, how you came to the table, what education you brought, and your creativity in order to enrich a student, and it's because somebody bundled in a letter. That's not how it works. That's not how it worked when we were growing up. You want to present some tools, work with the community to see what it is that these students bring to the table. Bring a whole approach. When you hear things like, if we don't have the testing, then we don't have the standards to measure the community. That's a load of bull. You have standards to measure the community because you have a hip-hop culture that's actually positive. Look into that. Those young students are also producing A's. Why? I have a child who's #1 in her class right now, and she's doing these things. Enrich the music programs, bring those back. Bring the aides back. Bring the people back that have really touched the lives of these students, and then test what they've done. Give them a criteria. And this is a parent talking. I am committed, so I'm going to offer a solution. This is what you need to do. Do you have the bubble test? We had them growing up, but they were specific. When you got done with that, you were told whether or not you were mechanically inclined or whether or not you were a social butterfly. That's all you got. But what you did in school and how you performed when you made that pillow in home ec class was going to determine maybe what you can do in life. And we have vocational schools that actually appeal to some of these talents and skills that children have, and we don't even uplift them. We have schools that take to culinary, schools that take to woodworking, schools that will give you skills when you come out of out of high school, things that bring positivity and enrichment. And if you go through middle school and elementary school and you're first chair or whatever, and then you can't even participate in that because they don't offer it in high school, then what? Offer a whole student approach or don't test my child.
So let's talk about the Buffalo School Board. Some people have said that it's dysfunctional, it needs to be changed, they need new faces, but you have to work with the superintendent, Dr. Kreiner-Cash. Can you both tell us, what do you think about the job that Dr. Cash has done so far?
Yeah, so if I was to sit here and say that I followed his every single move and his every single decision, and I've had my ear to the ground every second of the day, no. What I do know is being involved in community and trying to bring issues and trying to bring forth some of the real experience that we know he's bringing to the table, the fact that he is listening to people, the fact that he does know the right people, the man is definitely connected. What I do see is that there's someone who's actually, he doesn't want to be the next one to be shipped out of here in the next 10 minutes, right? So we're going to keep this one, hopefully, but I do believe that he's trying to keep an open mind about what's happening. To hear, certain people on the school board say that they're able to have one-on-one conversations with him and really bring issues to the table is definitely inspiring to me. Do I think that he's the end-all be-all? I don't know. I'm coming to the board to understand, to get to know him, to get to know the other board members, regardless of how I feel, because I too don't have an opponent. And I too cannot debate someone and don't even understand what his issues may or may not be in the district that we both seem to represent. But I do know that the people who will be on that board, whether I agree with their personal views, whether I agree with their policies, I have to work with them. So I too want to bring type of a uniformity of fairness and equity to the board, because it's ridiculous if you have to hire legal help just to get your point across. That's crap. We don't deal with that in society as a regular. Why are we dealing with that with millions of dollars on the table of my child?
Okay, so, the disparity on the board is why I decided to run, because it's affecting us students very directly. I go to Hedgeton High School. I've seen how this chaos, and I'm going to describe it as chaos because it's chaos on the board with this axe-wielding maniac who cannot compromise on anything, just going in and saying it's my way or the highway. That's not how normal societies work, and that's not how normal people have conversations, and so I believe that they have no place on the board. But with Dr. Cash, I believe that he brings a very good perspective and a very good hope for our schools. He's new, so I can't say much about it, but I can see that he's working hard. He's been actually visiting the schools. He's laid out an education plan. He's addressed the school to prison pipeline, which I think is one of the biggest issues that we can possibly have in the Buffalo Public Schools, and that's something that is near and dear to my heart, because I don't want to see my leaders going to jail and being funneled into jail by the school system. I do not think that that's good at all, and so I give Dr. Cash mad props for speaking up about that issue. And so if I'm on the board with Dr. Cash, I'm going to be happy to work with Dr. Cash. I think we're on the same page with a lot of things. We might not agree about everything, but that's just how normal people work. Normal people do not agree on everything, and they have discussions with each other and don't just get angry and ditch the debate. And so I'll be happy to work with Dr. Cash and anyone else on the board, regardless of their views.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Next question is Clip104, Mr. Mayor.
Are you familiar with this district's mission statement? And is it an achievable goal?
Could you give me the district's mission statement?
Well,
Putting parents,
putting children and families first to ensure high academic achievement for all.
That is a perfectly achievable thing, and that is the platform I'm running on. I apologize for not knowing it off the top of my head, but there's just some things you won't know off the top of your head. Yeah, that's perfectly achievable, and we do need to put the children and the families first, and that's why I'm running, because I feel like the children and the families are in the backseat right now over the interests of this conflict that's currently on the board, where you have people who have interest in charter schools. I was with James Sampson just yesterday, and he was like, oh yeah, I own a charter school, I want more funding for charter schools. In fact, if I get reelected, I was like, what, bro, you just want more money for yourself. You don't want to help these kids. So, I want to work for the kids, and that's what we can bring to the board if we have a board that is focused on the kids. And so, when I get elected to the board, I'm going to sit everyone down and I'm going to remind everyone, we are working for the children. We are working to help them succeed in life. We're not there to punish them. We're not there to call them failures. We're not there to make them feel like garbage and that we do not care about them. We are there to help them succeed in life. And if we on the board adopt that ideology as our mission statement, that goal that you outlined will be achieved in a very short and timely manner.
Very good.
It's hard to follow that. Yes, I definitely do believe in that, and I honestly have said this, I've only been up here so long, I've said it multiple times. Without the engagement of the community and the parents and the stakeholders, then you really don't have the solution to bring academic achievement. You really don't. And if you don't even take the time out to find the solutions that people have when it concerns their own children, then it's almost to the point that the community is helpless. They feel as if they don't care. And this is the reason why I'm running, is to make sure people realize that regardless of what happens, whether I get this position or not, people need to step up. We need to step up. If you're a grandparent, you need to step up. People need to step up. It's enough. You can bring a community together. We were able to, when we're talking about the 3 schools that were in, once it really became clear to community how unfair, some real one-on-one type unfairness was going on, and how many students were going to be in jeopardy, and the teachers that were going to be in jeopardy, and the faculty and the buildings, the whole infrastructure of the schools were in jeopardy. People came out. And they came out in ways that nobody expected. The board meetings were full. And there were angry parents with their little 2 minutes and 13 seconds to talk to you because you don't have enough time to get to the real root of why somebody made a decision where your kid's going to suffer. So now if we start really rallying people and start really bringing people to the table, solutions will come to the table. We will start making some changes. It ain't going to happen tomorrow. But if I'm elected to the board, it damn sure is going to happen sooner than later.
Thank you. Claudine, you would next question for Ms. Nicosi.
Well, let me ask this question. Which of the following authors are you familiar with? Each has written extensively on how to improve education in urban schools. Dr. Jamanza Kujufu, Gloria Ladson-Billings, Janice E. Hale Benson, Jonathan Kozol, and Shahid Mohammed.
I'm going to answer that first. Surprise, surprise, I don't know any of those authors. I really don't. We talked about parents out there who are working 2 and 3 jobs and struggling. I heard this question before, but get emotional because I don't want to feel like I'm inadequate.
No.
I worked 2 jobs. I didn't have time to read enough
And you
books.
don't have to justify your behavior.
And no, this to me is important because it's why parents are being told that they're not involved. You're not involved because you're not educated enough. You can't sit in this seat because you're not educated enough. That's full. That's full. To bring the community that I've rallied to the table around things that concern their children. I'm giving them that voice, and now they're going to come back and give other people that voice. I want to be that next author, but I'm not familiar with those. Big job.
I'll just say something, Mr. Waters. The question is not asking, have you read all of their books, but have you at least heard something about them or been familiar with their work? Because we have a very extensive urban school system. And in order to deal with some of the very real and critical issues, you do have to have some information, not reading a 600-page book but perhaps you have heard of them. So that was really the aim of that question.
I tend to get emotional, sorry. But actually, no. I mean, I've heard the names before, granted, but I can't pinpoint where in passing. I've been living in Buffalo pretty much my whole life. I understand the blight of Buffalo. Me being in part of the West District, we have a whole, another dynamic when it comes to the refugee immigrant population that's coming in. When it comes to a woman who looks Hispanic to everyone, but yet I'm a Filipino-Italian who grew up, I'm 45, and I grew up and we had the neighborhood schools that were segregating people. Because once the Puerto Ricans moved over Connecticut Street, all the Italians want to migrate to North Buffalo. I was a part of all that. So when we talk about being urban in Buffalo, we need to, what was said in the last panel, not just concentrate on one particular. We need to concentrate on everything that's bringing diversity into this beautiful city. We are recognized nationally in one zip code for being in the top 5 of diverse areas in this country. I'm going to be representing that zip code when I become part of this board, because I'm starting to feel the confidence I didn't feel 5 minutes ago. We need to have more diversity, not just told to us. We need to challenge people to bring their voice and tell us what they're about, what they know about, where they come from. And if they don't know everything, then we need to have that village tell them what they're missing and learn from them too, because everybody got a perspective to bring to the table. So let's concentrate on everybody. Honestly, I feel like I'm feeling a little, I don't know if it's guilty or shame or what, but I do need to get to know some things. I didn't take the time out, I will say that.
Barnes and Nobles is open till you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Coker. Mr. Wallet, it's okay to differ in this group. Thank you very much. Mr. Harris.
Okay, so, I'm going to talk about this, but first I'm going to clarify. Before this debate, I didn't know about these authors. I did some research when I first heard this question, just so I could be educated on it. But as a student, look, this is my sister's math book, and if you think this is 4th grade Common Core mathematics, you know, if you think this big book is bad with all this work for one question, imagine what a 12th grade senior gets, and then understand why I haven't had the time to go look into their works, even though reading from them in the audience, I've learned that they're wonderful people. So I'm going to talk about Dr. Kajufu really fast. You know, I really appreciated that she believes that our children can learn. And what? No. Oh my God. I thought I clarified. Well, I tried.
You're doing fine. Keep going.
So look, she said that he said things about how our children can learn and how each child is unique. And he also talked about the importance of computers and technology. And those are all things that I stand strongly for, because I've lived with these kids in Buffalo, and they are unique. They are really unique. They are gems, and I've met so many of them. There's so many great people. A lot of them helped me with my campaign. They've organized whole websites for me in days. They've done graphic designing. These kids in Buffalo schools, they're absolutely wonderful. And so I fully agree with that. These kids are unique, and they can learn. We just need to put the effort and time into making sure they have a good educational environment and feel like that their people up at the board care about them and are fighting for them every single day, and that's what I will do.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
So we'll take another question from the audience. What is your plan for increasing student attendance?
Mr. Harris first.
Okay. Attendance is a big thing with me. Look, there's always a reason a kid isn't coming to school, whether it be family issues, they feel like the system does not care about them, they're stressed out by testing. There's a lot of reasons. And we need to have people who can reach out to these kids and try helping them. And we also need to make programs that help kids feel like they're actually learning things that are going to help them in the real world. Right now, you're teaching them this Common Core, you're teaching them all this stuff that overwhelms them, stresses them out. You have this testing culture where numbers are the only thing that matter, and experience is put secondary to reading and mathematics, and it makes them feel like they're just guinea pigs, they're just numbers on a piece of paper, that's all they are to these college people. No, that can't be like that if we're going to help these kids succeed, and so we're going to make programs that are going to teach these kids workplace skills that are going to get them jobs in the real world. We're going to hire some more attendance teachers so they can reach out to the kids who have family issues, and we're going to give them the resources to ensure that they can help these kids who are in struggling families, by whether it be by helping them get to school, by getting them all the content they need and instituting home study, whether it be anything like that. Another big thing is punishments and suspensions. Buffalo Schools has a big problem with that, a big problem, and I'm one of the best people to talk about this because my own peers have been affected by it. My one friend, he got into a fight, made a mistake, they suspended him for 4 months. He can't graduate this year, which means the system needs to spend more money to keep him in school for another year, and you delayed his entire life by a year. I don't think that's right. I don't think that's right, and we need to be helping him succeed, not punishing him.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
So, I mean, it's, no matter where you are in Buffalo, you know attendance is a super serious issue. It's immense. We do know there have been policies introduced, there's been different things that are, supposed to attack this problem. Becoming part of this board, I think that what I'm gonna bring to the table is I want to learn. I'm a softball coach, 7 and 10-year-old little girls. I've been doing this for 10 years on the west side. I'll be that newbie. I need to learn from the veterans what's out there already. How do we uplift the great work that somebody might be trying to put on the table? How do we get from community the pluses and the deltas? You organizers know what I'm talking about. How do we get, what are the issues that's affecting attendance in our communities, not just in my district, in Buffalo as a whole, right? I'm trying to help work around Buffalo as a whole. We representing one part, but we all supposed to be working as a whole. So you can't change the world in a day, but my job, if I get on this, and I will consider this a job and be loyal to it, is to make sure that everybody's voice is heard so a solution can come to the table. I want to take what's in effect that's actually working in some way, shape, or form. I want to hold accountable policies that may not be held accountable. And I want to shush and put down the people who just want to throw their finger on something and say this is what should be done. You want to ship my child somewhere else because you don't think their parents have a way to get them there, or they're just being neglectful. You don't know who that parent is. It could be their big brother because their parents working 2 jobs. Shut your mouth and let's do this the right way. So this is what I'm saying when it comes to attendance. We're going to find that money that we know is out there. We're going to get more money to make sure that if we got parent facilitators, we have attendance aides like we used to have. Ain't no way that we're going to be in a worse position now with more money than we were with less money. I came out the way I came out. I'm sitting up here now. I want my child to do bigger and better than I am, and I want them to have the resources to do so. And they can only do that if they continue to go to school. And why would we not want to put resources into making sure our children come to school? Like, if they're not there, then what job does anybody have in the school district?
Thank you, Mr. Question from Mr. Harris.
What is the demographic makeup of the student body in the public schools and the teaching staff? Do you see any problem if there is a disparity? And the second part of the question is, should there be special training for teachers from suburban environments to help them understand the culture and learning style of students of color?
Okay, so with the diversity, we have about 80% minority students in the district, and the staff is about 90% white, usually concentrated in a couple schools though, like Discovery, hashtag, places like that. So, yeah, it's true. I'm not going to lie about it. It's concentrated in a couple schools. So let's discuss, we need a diverse group of teachers, first of all. Teachers need to be teaching kids of their demographic, or at least we need more of that. Maybe it doesn't need to be perfect, but at least if you try tackling this problem at least a little bit, kids would feel so much better. Because I will tell you, you know, having no teacher in your entire school for 4 years of your race who can understand you, that must suck for a lot of kids. And it could make them feel marginalized and left out and like nobody understands them, especially if the teachers who are teaching them, who aren't of their race, aren't conscious of the issues that their race is facing and doesn't understand them to a level that somebody of their own race would. And so you gotta keep this in mind, because students form personal relationships with their teachers, and that doesn't happen if the students feel like their teachers are not conscious towards them and care about them. And so we need a more diverse group of teachers, first of all, so this can happen, because this improves attendance, believe it or not. Because if kids feel like their teachers care about them, they will start coming to school. And so we need a more diverse group. And should there be special training, it's something we need to look at as a board, how much it costs and things like that. But I think there should be at least some sort of training and briefing that we can do to help make this a lesser problem, because it is a problem and it needs to be addressed.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Ms. McCoskey.
I think there's bits of that question that I kind of got lost in. Would you mind repeating that, please?
Okay, the question is, what is the demographic makeup of the student body, the teaching staff, and do you see any problem if they're in that disparity? If you agree that there is a disparity? And should there be special training for teachers from the suburban environments to help understand the culture and learning styles of students of color? And I'm including in there not just African American students, Latino, Asian, Native Americans.
Yeah, well, I mean, the obvious answer to me, and again, I don't have textbook anything, I think you guys have figured that out by now, is that when you look at the demographic of the students in Buffalo, all you gotta do is go to one of the 4 sides of town. You'll understand the demographic of the students and where they're coming from and what their background is and their economic and social environments are. Do the teachers match the demographic environments of the schools that they're teaching in? I don't believe so. I don't believe so. And I also, what I do believe is that if teachers regardless, and if students regardless of their demographics, were given the proper resources and the proper training to be able to deal with whoever and whatever it is they're teaching, that we would, and give them the aids and what they need, then we would be able to really address issues that are happening on a more holistic level. When we start looking into things as individuals because of only race, we're missing the creativity again. We're missing the whole, hey, that's John. Doesn't matter what John is. And the teacher is Mrs. So-and-so. It doesn't matter who she is, because John and that teacher have engaged because there's a smaller class size and they know each other and they're going to help each other regardless. So when we talk about demographics, it all comes back to the same unfortunate thing, is money has been ruling this city. We don't have the proper money, and we do have, and we know we are deserving of more, and we know we aren't allotted more. We don't have the training in place because the dollars aren't being put for the training in place. You have teachers who are being frustrated and their morale is low, and they're feeling they're not doing their job because they have 37 children in their class. And then you have students who aren't getting that attention because they have one teacher who has 37 students in the class. And then there's the dropout rate, and then people aren't coming to school. So it all revolves around the same thing. To me, we need to look into training when you talk about, making sure that folks in the suburbs understand the culture and what's going on in Buffalo, most definitely. But Buffalo needs to be trained on what's going on in Buffalo, because Buffalo students and teachers still need to understand each other before we start looking into who might understand what's going on in Buffalo. So if the suburbs concentrate on suburbs, let's check out our own selves and see what we're doing right, wrong, and otherwise. Start taking care of our own backyard.
Thank you, Ms. McCoskey. We are about to wrap up. Our final question from Claudine Ewing for Ms. McCoskey.
So
Ms. Maposi, I know you mentioned being on the west side, you see so much, you see different racial groups now there, and so the schools are made up of so many languages. Would you support a waiver from the state testing for English language learners?
Yes. Yes, I think that model that's had, I believe it's in New York City. The waiver, if you hear people who get upset because they go to a McDonald's and get upset because there's 2 languages on the McDonald's menu. Come on. You have students, if you feel anything in your heart, mind, body, or soul, someone who came from a war-torn country where their families are watching other families and friends and neighbors being destroyed by whatever political or whatever climate they're in, and they come here and they're considered almost outcasts. The services are just as basic as they get. And then they go into the only environments where they're supposed to better themselves, where people bring them here in order to enrich their children and go through hell and high water in order to enrich their children. And I know this and can feel this wholeheartedly because I am in those communities. These are the people I talk to, with interpreters 99% of the time, is because they want better for their children. And then they come here and their children are being discriminated against and ostracized because they can't take a test at the same level. And we're not just talking about the students that are coming from other countries. We have students that are here that were born and raised in Buffalo, New York, that are not being taught, that are not being given the proper resources, that are also struggling with these tests. So the waiver, yes, should definitely be extended to ELL learners. Why? Because that just makes sense. That's not just me being the West District person talking about the refugee and immigration population. But if we do that, we need to equally look into what's happening in our own society, in our own students, in our own so-called failing students, because they're not failing, they just need that, what is the root causes of what's going on with them? What is the root causes of each individual case? We need to take these millions of dollars and look into what is happening with our students and our families, and the families we're bringing in here, opening up open arms to bring families here in the 3rd most populous city in the country. But we are not doing anything but pointing fingers at each other as to why nobody's succeeding. Come together, bring those communities together, bring all the communities together, figure out what's happening, and let's start doing something about it.
Thank you, Ms. Nkosi. Mr. Everett.
Absolutely. I think it's outrageous that this is something that wasn't done 50 years ago, because this is the student perspective. You're testing people on something that they have no chance on, and then you're going to give them the score, and it's going to be a bad score, and you're going to make them feel bad about it? No. What the? No. That just stresses out the students, and that goes against everything I stand for, because you can't send a student who isn't trained to deal with something into a test that they have no idea how to do. That's like sending a soldier with a pistol against a tank. It doesn't work. And so definitely a waiver should be extended to these students who are ESL and need to learn English. And we need to give them the resources to help teach them the language and help get them up to speed so they can be successful just like anybody else. It's very important that we're giving these kids the resources and helping them become successful just like any other kid, because we need to look at this as a generational issue. Every kid deserves an equal shot at success in life, and so this is whether they know Arabic as their first language, Spanish as their first language. We need to help them. We need to help them succeed, and we need to be conscious of the fact that they can't take an English language test until they have in fact learned the English language. I know it's surprising, right? But it's just like common sense, I think. So definitely, we need to do that, and that's something I would definitely advocate for as a board member. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Everett. That's questions portion. Now, 1 minute closing statement from our 2 candidates, starting with Mr. Herring.